Making the Right Choice, Jesus. Table of Contents. Chapter 1, The Dare. Chapter 2, Youth Night. Chapter 3, Split Life. Chapter 4, Consequences. Chapter 5, The Turning Point. Chapter 6, A New Direction. Chapter 1, The Dare. Jacob stared at the blinking cursor on his laptop screen, pretending to focus on the lecture slides while the noise of the student lounge swirled around him. Someone laughed loudly near the vending machines. A chair scraped. Music leaked from a too-loud headphone nearby. The whole place felt like half school, half party, and he was stuck somewhere in between. "Bro, you coming or what?" Jacob looked up. Tyler stood over him, grinning, a backpack hanging off one shoulder and a baseball cap turned backward. Behind him, Zane leaned against the wall, scrolling his phone. Nia, with her bright braids and louder personality, waved a packet of chips like a flag. "Where?" Jacob asked, even though he already knew the answer. Tyler always had somewhere better to be. "Back tables," Tyler said. "We're running through Dr. Weller's quiz. Zane's got resources." Zane smirked without looking up. "I have what normal people call notes." Nia laughed. "More like the answers you should have if you didn't sleep through class, Jacob." Jacob shut his laptop a little too quickly. "I don't sleep through class." "Your face says otherwise," Nia shot back. "It's just, he goes fast," Jacob said. "And the slides are confusing." Tyler clapped him on the shoulder. "Exactly why you need us. Come on. It's not cheating if we're just collaborating." The word hung in the air, thin and dishonest. Jacob felt it, but he ignored it and let them pull him toward the back of the lounge. They claimed a table near the windows, where the campus courtyard spread out in bright afternoon light, students crossing in all directions, backpacks bouncing, laughter rising and falling like waves. Jacob dropped into a chair as Tyler slid his phone onto the table, screen already open to a picture of an exam paper. "That Dr. Weller is such a fossil," Nia said. "Same quiz every year. Same questions. Same order." "You got this from your cousin?" Tyler asked. "Cousin, ex-boyfriend, I don't know. It's a blur," Nia said with a shrug. "Point is, this is what he gives. Every time." Jacob swallowed. "Isn't that kind of wrong?" Tyler rolled his eyes. "Church boy, relax. Everybody does this. It's college, not heaven." Zane finally looked up, amused. "You think the dean is going to swoop down from the clouds because you knew what question 3 was ahead of time?" Nia tapped the screen. "Look, you still have to study. You still have to know the material. This just gives you a head start." Jacob thought about the quiz, 20% of their grade. He thought about his last score, a shaky pass, and the way his dad's face tightened when he saw it. "You just started," Dad had said. "Don't start slipping already." He thought about the youth leader at church last week, talking about integrity in little things. The words had felt fine then, like something that belonged in church, not in a real place like this. Now the words felt heavier. "Look," Tyler said, leaning close. "We're not asking you to sell your soul. You're just not going to be the one idiot in class who didn't know what was coming. Besides," Nia added, "you think Weller cares? He's checked out. He's probably used the same quiz since before we were born." Jacob hesitated, conscience pushing against the easy laughter. "I don't know," he said. "What if we get caught?" Zane snorted. "Caught how?" "Think about it. We're not copying from someone in the room. We just know the questions. It's basically like having a good memory." "That's not how memory works," Jacob muttered. Nia grinned. "Okay, Professor. You gonna report us or join us?" The challenge in her voice made his chest grow tight. He studied their faces, expectant, amused, not remotely worried. This was normal for them. No one else in the lounge looked like they were wrestling with a moral crisis. People were joking, scrolling, watching videos. 2 tables away, a guy in a hoodie was clearly copying something from his phone onto a worksheet. Jacob felt that familiar sense of being out of place, like he was wearing the wrong uniform. "I'm not reporting anyone," he said. "So you're in," Tyler said, already pulling out his notebook. Jacob exhaled, a quiet surrender. "I'm in." There was no dramatic moment. No thunderclap. Just Tyler turning the phone so they could all see the questions, Nia scribbling notes, Zane explaining which multiple-choice answers matched. They talked loudly, made jokes about Weller's ancient references, and called the whole thing strategy. Jacob wrote down the questions, feeling his heartbeat climb every time he glanced at the door. No one came. No one watched. The ceiling fan hummed. The vending machine rattled. "You look like you're about to confess to something," Zane said. "Relax. This is survival." "Exactly," Nia added. "Welcome to college, Jacob. You're officially one of us now." "Congratulations," Tyler said, holding up his hand for a high five. Jacob hesitated, then slapped his palm weakly against Tyler's. The victory felt hollow. That night, Jacob lay in bed staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to his ceiling from when he was 12. He knew he should have taken them down years ago, but somehow he never got around to it. They made the room feel like a mix of past and present, like him. His phone buzzed on the pillow beside him. "Tyler, got those questions burned into your brain yet?" Face with tears of joy. "N.A., if we all pass, I'm starting a consulting business." "Zane, academic optimization services." Jacob smiled in spite of himself, thumb hovering over the keyboard. "Jacob, yeah, I'm looking over them now." "Tyler, atta boy. Church boy gone wild." Smiling face with horns. Jacob's smile faded. He set the phone down and rolled onto his back, lacing his fingers behind his head. Church boy gone wild. He knew Tyler meant it as a joke, but it lodged in his chest like a tiny stone. He thought about Sunday mornings, clean clothes, familiar songs, the same rows of chairs. He thought about his youth leader asking how college was going and him answering, "Good, just busy," because that was easier than explaining this. "It's not like I killed anyone," he told himself. "It's just a quiz." He closed his eyes. Sleep came in fragments at first, images flickering, sounds blurring, but then, all at once, he was simply standing in a hallway. It was long, longer than any hallway he had seen on campus. The floor was smooth and pale, maybe tile, maybe polished stone, and it stretched so far that the end seemed to vanish in a gentle haze. The ceiling lights were bright but soft, no harsh buzzing. It was quiet. Too quiet. On both sides, doors lined the walls. Some doors glowed faintly around the edges, as if light were leaking through the cracks. Others looked normal, plain wood or painted metal. But a few, maybe 3 or 4, seemed off. The air around them looked slightly darker, like a shadow that didn't belong in such a well-lit hall. Jacob frowned and looked down at himself. He wore the same clothes he'd had on that afternoon: jeans, sneakers, the college hoodie he'd bought during orientation week. His backpack hung from one shoulder, heavier than he remembered. He took a step forward and heard his footsteps echo softly. "Hello," he called. No answer. Just the faint hum of whatever was powering the lights. He moved past the first few doors, curiosity pulling him. One of the bright-edged doors on his right seemed to breathe light, like it was alive. He paused, hand half-raised to touch the handle. A sensation washed over him, warmth, calm, as if stepping through that doorway would feel like sinking into the best kind of quiet. Then, from the left, a whisper. He turned. A darker door, its paint slightly chipped, sat a few feet away. The metal handle gleamed, catching the light in a sharp, inviting line. There was nothing explicitly terrifying about it. It looked like a door to a storage closet or an unused classroom. But the air felt heavier near it, and the shadow along the floor stretched a little farther than it should. "Hey," a voice murmured. Jacob froze. The voice didn't come from the hallway. It seemed to come from inside his own head and from the door at the same time. "Hey, relax. It's not that serious." He took a step back. "Who's there?" he asked. No answer. Only a faint sense of being watched, not in a hostile way, but in that casual, familiar way his friends watched him when they were daring him to go along. He glanced back at the bright door. The warm feeling tugged at him. But the dark-edged door felt closer, easier to reach. "It's just one door," the whisper pressed. "Everybody does it. Don't be dramatic." The words were too close to what Nia had said. Too close to what he had told himself. His heartbeat picked up. He swallowed and took another step back, but his heel hit something, the wall, maybe, or nothing at all, and he stumbled. Instinctively, he reached forward to steady himself. His hand landed on the dark door's handle. It was cool, almost pleasant. The whisper surged, filling his head with a sudden rush of relief. See? That wasn't so hard. Jacob's fingers tightened on the handle. Part of him wanted to yank his hand away. Another part reminded him there was nothing actually happening. It was just a dream, a weird one, probably because of stress. His thumb brushed the metal. The handle turned under his grip. The door cracked open a fraction of an inch. A chill spilled out, not the sharp kind that makes you shiver, but a hollow, empty cold that made his stomach twist. He woke up with a gasp. The room was dark except for the soft glow of the ceiling stars and the blue rectangle of his phone. Screen on the pillow. His heart pounded like he had been running. He sat up, pressing a hand to his chest. It was just a dream, he whispered to himself. Just a dream. His phone buzzed again. N.A. Don't stay up too late, genius. Quiz is 10 a.m. sleepy face. Jacob stared at the message, then at the time, 1:13 a.m. He lay back down, but the image of the hallway stayed with him. Rows of doors, some bright, some dark, his hand on the wrong handle. He told himself it didn't mean anything. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the half-formed excuses and the nervous jokes, something small and stubborn whispered back. You know better. Chapter 2, Youth Night. Jacob avoided looking at the mirror as he buttoned his shirt. It wasn't that he looked bad. His college hoodie was traded for a plain button-up and jeans, the usual compromise between respectable for church and not trying too hard. His hair behaved for once. Everything was fine. It just felt strange, getting dressed for youth night after the week he'd had. Jacob, you ready? His mother called from the hallway. Yeah, he said, grabbing his phone and stuffing it into his pocket. Coming. He met her at the front door. She smiled when she saw him, that tired but proud smile he'd known his whole life. Thank you for still going, she said. I know college is busy. It's just a couple hours, he replied. Not a big deal. She tilted her head, studying him. You've been quiet this week. I'm just tired, he said. Classes. She didn't push, but he could feel the question lingering as they stepped outside. The church was only a 15-minute drive away. The sun was just dipping low when they pulled into the parking lot, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. Cars were already lined up, music drifting faintly from the open side door to the youth room. I'll see you after, his mother said. Text me if it runs late. Sure. He stepped out of the car and shoved his hands into his pockets as he walked toward the building. The familiar smell of the foyer, floor cleaner, bulletin ink, and faint coffee wrapped around him. A few younger kids ran past, laughing, nearly colliding with him before their leader called them back. The youth/young adult group met in what used to be a small hall, now dressed up with a stage, colored lights, and a worn-in sound system. Jacob followed the noise down the corridor. A guitar being tuned, voices sharing quick stories, the low rumble of a bass through the wall. Inside, people milled about in small clusters. Some sat on the mismatched chairs. Others leaned against the walls. The worship team practiced a few lines at the front. Jake, someone called. He turned to see Noah weaving through the crowd, a wide grin on his face. Noah was the kind of guy who still laughed at camp memories from 3 summers ago, who cried during worship and never pretended otherwise. You made it, Noah said, giving him a quick side hug. How's campus life? You a full-blown adult now or just pretending? Mostly pretending, Jacob said, managing a small smile. Noah chuckled. Same. I've got 3 assignments due and I've only opened one of them. Come on, let's sit. They found chairs near the middle. A girl from Jacob's childhood, Sarah, waved briefly from across the room before returning to her conversation. A couple of older college students sat in the back, their faces half-lit by phone screens. At the front, their youth/young adult leader, Marcus, adjusted the microphone stand. He was in his 30s, jeans and a simple t-shirt, Bible tucked under his arm. When he spoke, his voice carried just enough authority to quiet the room without sounding harsh. All right, everybody, Marcus said. Phones away for now, please. We'll do worship, then a short word, then small groups. Someone groaned playfully. A few chuckled. Jacob slid his phone deeper into his pocket. The worship was familiar, songs he'd sung since junior high. He mouthed the words, sometimes singing softly, sometimes falling silent. Around him, some people raised their hands, eyes closed. Others swayed lightly. A few stood stiffly, more present in body than in heart. Jacob tried to focus, but his mind kept drifting back to the quiz, to Tyler's church boy gone wild joke, to the dream hallway and the cold rushing out from the dark door. When the last chord faded, Marcus stepped forward again. "Thank you, guys," he said to the worship team. "All right. Tonight, we're talking about choices." Jacob's stomach tightened. "Not just big, dramatic choices," Marcus continued, "like who you're going to marry or where you're going to live. We're talking about the small, everyday choices that shape who you're becoming." He paced slowly in front of the stage, hands relaxed. "Most of you have heard the verse about the wide gate and the narrow gate," he said. "It talks about a wide, easy road that many people walk, and a narrow, harder road that fewer people choose. The wide road feels comfortable. The narrow road can feel lonely at first. But the destinations are very different." He briefly summarized the idea in his own words, avoiding direct quotation but painting a clear picture: 2 paths, 2 gates, 2 kinds of life. Jacob shifted in his chair. Marcus continued, "Think about your week. Think about the decisions you made when no one was watching. The comments you posted. The things you watched. The jokes you laughed at. The people you decided to impress." Noah glanced at Jacob and then back at Marcus, thoughtful. "Sometimes," Marcus said, "it doesn't feel like a big deal. Everybody does it. It's just one time. I'll be serious about God later." Sound familiar? A few chuckles. Someone murmured, "Too familiar." Jacob stared at the floor. "When you're under pressure," Marcus said, "it can feel like there are 100 doors in front of you, and the easiest one, the one your friends are cheering for, is the one that leads away from Jesus, not toward him." Jacob's head snapped up. "Doors. Maybe it's a door marked compromise," Marcus went on. "Cheating a little. Lying a little. Doing something you know isn't right because you don't want to stand out." Jacob swallowed, pulse beating in his ears. "Or a door marked approval," Marcus said. "You walk through it because you care more about what your friends think of you than what Jesus thinks." Or a door marked comfort, choosing what's easiest instead of what's right. He paused, looking across the room. His gaze seemed to linger on Jacob for a heartbeat, though Jacob couldn't be sure. "And then there's the other door," Marcus said, shifting his tone. "The one that doesn't always look exciting at first. Maybe it's the door where you tell the truth, even when it costs you. The door where you walk away from something everyone else is doing. The door where you admit you've messed up and ask Jesus to forgive you." Jacob saw the hallway in his mind, bright doors, dark doors, the handle cool under his hand. "The thing is," Marcus continued, "you're not just choosing a door. You're choosing who you're walking with. You're choosing who gets to shape your heart." He opened his Bible, read a short passage about not being conformed to the world, but being transformed in how you think, paraphrasing and explaining in plain language. He talked about how small, hidden choices either pull you closer to Jesus or push you farther away, how there's no truly neutral ground. Jacob's thoughts spun. He found himself picking at a loose thread on his jeans, trying to make his face look neutral. "So tonight," Marcus said, "I want you to be honest, with God and with yourself. Which doors have you been choosing lately? Whose voice has been loudest in your head? Your friends? Social medias? Your fear of missing out? Or Jesus?" Silence settled over the room for a moment. "We're going to split into small groups and talk," Marcus said. "Nobody's here to judge you. We're here to walk with you. But pretending doesn't help anyone. Not you, not your friends, not your faith." Leaders began moving around, calling names and gesturing toward different corners of the room. Jacob and Noah ended up with 3 other students and an older college girl named Leah, who had been helping with the youth for the past year. They formed a loose circle of chairs near the side wall. Leah smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "All right. You guys know the drill. No interrupting, no laughing at each other, and whatever is shared here stays here unless someone is in danger, okay?" They nodded. "So," she said, "what stood out to you tonight?" A younger boy, maybe 16, spoke first. The thing about friends cheering for the wrong door. I've got some guys at school who, yeah, that felt real. Leah nodded. Thank you for sharing that. Sarah spoke next. The part about pretending. I'm tired of, looking like I'm fine when I'm not. Leah's eyes softened. That takes courage to say. Noah cleared his throat. I think I've been choosing the comfort door a lot. I know I should be sharing my faith more on campus, but it's just easier to blend in. They all chuckled a little in that nervous, we get it way. Leah looked at Jacob. What about you, Jacob? He felt every pair of eyes turn toward him. His mind flashed through the week, the quiz, the answers on Tyler's phone, his hand on the dark door in the dream, the chill that woke him up. He began, then stopped. You could tell them, a quiet thought suggested. You could say it. You could be honest. He pictured Tyler's reaction if he found out Jacob had told church friends about what they had done. Snitch wasn't a label he wanted. I've been tired, he said finally. College is a lot. I think I've just been trying to keep up. Leah nodded slowly. That's real. It is a lot. It's like, you can't mess up, Jacob added quickly, hoping that made it sound deeper. Grades, expectations, all of that. Yeah, Noah said. There's a lot of pressure. Leah looked at Jacob for a moment longer, like she could see the words he wasn't saying. But she didn't push. Well, she said softly, God isn't surprised by any of that. He knows how you're feeling. He's not standing there with a clipboard, waiting for you to slip so he can mark you down. He's inviting you to walk with him in all of it. She talked a little more about grace and honesty, how Jesus doesn't ask for fake perfection, just a real heart that's willing to come back to him again and again. Jacob listened, half comforted, half convicted. When small groups ended, everyone drifted back toward the center of the room. There were snacks on a folding table, juice, cookies, something that was supposed to be pizza. Jacob grabbed a cup just to have something in his hands. Marcus passed by, clapping a few shoulders, asking quick questions. How's campus, Jacob? He asked when he reached him. Busy, Jacob said. Lots of work. Marcus smiled. Good busy or drowning busy? Somewhere in the middle, Jacob said. I'm managing. Marcus studied him, his expression kind but searching. You know you can talk if you need to, right? College is a big shift. You're not meant to figure it all out alone. Yeah, Jacob said. Thanks. Marcus nodded and moved on. Jacob watched him go, feeling the weight of unsaid words pressing at his throat. On the ride home, his mother asked how it went. It was fine, he said. We talked about choices. That sounds important, she replied. He stared out the window at the passing streetlights. Yeah, I guess. That night, he expected the dream. It didn't matter that he told himself it was just his brain processing the talk, the week, the stress. When he finally fell asleep, the now familiar sensation of standing pulled him back to the hallway. It looked the same, but different. The floor gleamed. The ceiling lights cast soft, steady brightness. The rows of doors lined each side, stretching into the distance. But now, the bright-edged doors seemed a little farther away, and the shadow around the darker doors reached a little farther across the floor. Jacob glanced down. Same hoodie. Same jeans. Same backpack pressing against his shoulder. He walked slowly, listening. Silence. Then, a faint whisper. See? Still here, the voice murmured, sliding around him like smoke. Nothing bad happened. He swallowed and kept walking. One of the dark-edged doors to his left drew his eye. Its handle gleamed in a way that made his fingers twitch, remembering the feel of cool metal. You made the right choice, the whisper cooed. You took care of yourself. You didn't let them make a fool of you. Jacob shivered. Who are you? The whisper didn't answer. Instead, images flickered across the door's surface, like reflections on glass. Tyler laughing, Nia tossing her hair, Zane shrugging, the quiz paper with perfect answers. You're fitting in now, the whisper said. You belong. He turned away, forcing his eyes forward. At the far end of the hallway, the same bright door stood slightly open. Light poured through the crack, a warmth that reached even from a distance. For a moment, he felt a pull, gentle but strong, calling him closer. You don't have to, another part of him argued. Not yet. Later. When it's easier. He took a step toward the bright door. The shadow from the dark door stretched further, trying to brush his shoes. The air grew heavier. Why does it feel so hard? He muttered. His foot caught on something invisible. He stumbled, arms flailing, and instinctively grabbed the nearest object to steady himself. His hand slammed against another dark door. Cold rushed up his arm. He sucked in a breath and jerked his hand back. The whisper flared up in his mind, sharper now. You're already here, it hissed. Why pretend? Jacob woke up with his heart racing and his pillow damp with sweat. For a long time, he lay in the dark, listening to his own breathing. Marcus's words echoed in his mind. You're not just choosing a door. You're choosing who you're walking with. Jacob stared at the ceiling stars, their faint glow blurring as his eyes stung. God, he whispered into the quiet, unsure if he was praying or just talking. I don't know what I'm doing. The room stayed silent. But in the silence, the memory of the bright door at the end of the hall stayed with him, a small, stubborn image of light that refused to go away. Chapter 3: Split Life. The campus looked different when you carried a secret. Jacob noticed it in the little things. The way the posters on the hallway walls seemed louder, as if every club and event were shouting for his attention. The way the professors' voices felt sharper, each reminder about academic honesty, making his shoulders tense. The way the laughter from certain groups felt like it was coming from behind one of those dark doors in his dreams. He shoved his hands into his hoodie pocket and kept walking. The quiz had come and gone. Dr. Weller had handed out the papers with his usual monotone, eyes barely lifting from the stack as he moved down the rows. Tyler had caught Jacob's gaze across the aisle and given a subtle thumbs up. The questions were exactly the same. Jacob had known almost all of them before seeing the paper. His pencil had flown, filling in the blanks, circling answers. It had been almost effortless. Now, days later, the score sat folded in his backpack, 19 out of 20, a neat, excellent, scrawled in red ink at the top. He should have felt proud. Instead, every time he thought about it, he remembered the whisper in the hallway. You're already here. Why pretend? Hey, Jacob. He snapped out of his thoughts and turned. Nia jogged up beside him, braids bouncing, phone in hand. You walked right past us, she said. You ignoring your favorite people now? Jacob forced a smile. Just thinking. Dangerous habit, she said cheerfully. Come on, we're outside. They pushed through the glass doors into the courtyard. Tyler and Zane were at their usual spot on the low stone wall, backpacks at their feet, a half-empty soda bottle between them. There he is, Tyler said. Mr. 19 out of 20. Weller's gonna put your quiz on the fridge, Zane added. Jacob shrugged, trying to keep his face relaxed. You guys did fine too. Tyler grinned. We did more than fine. That quiz was a joke. We're basically academic legends now. Heroes of the people, Nia said, raising her hands in mock triumph. You're welcome, world. They laughed. Jacob laughed too, but it came out thinner than he intended. Speaking of legends, Tyler said, eyes brightening, Friday night. Party at Jason's place. Off campus, no supervision. You in? Jacob hesitated. What kind of party? The fun kind, Tyler said. Music, food, people. Maybe some stuff that would make your youth pastor cry, but will keep you safe. Nia smirked. Relax, church boy. Nobody's baptizing you in anything you don't want. Just come hang. Jacob pictured his youth room, Leah talking about honesty, Marcus asking who he was walking with, the bright door at the end of the dream hall. Then he pictured Jason's house, somewhere he'd never been but could imagine perfectly. Loud music, too many people, red plastic cups, dark corners. I don't know, he said. I've got assignments. You always have assignments, Zane said. So do we. That's what Sundays are for. Tyler nudged him with an elbow. Come on. You survived Weller. You deserve a break. You don't want to be the only one with no stories when everybody talks about it next week, do you? The words hit a familiar nerve. The truth was, Jacob was tired of being the one with no stories. When his old friends from school posted pictures of their nights out, he pretended it didn't bother him. When people at church talked about standing firm in situations he'd never faced, he felt like an outsider there too. Between two worlds, fully at home in neither. "What time?" he heard himself ask. "Attaboy," Tyler said. 8. "We'll send you the address." Nia pointed her phone at him. "Smile." He blinked. "What?" "Group chat," she said. "If you're coming, you're officially graduating from lurker status." He gave a half-hearted grin. She snapped the picture anyway. By the time Jacob got to his next class, his phone buzzed with a new notification. New group, Friday fam. He opened it. Tyler had already dropped the party details, complete with a blurry photo of Jason's backyard. Comments were rolling in, people hyped, people joking, people hinting at things they'd bring. Jacob stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard. He wanted to type, "I'm not sure yet." Or maybe I'll just stay home. Or I'll come, but I'm not doing anything stupid. Instead, he typed, "Jacob, I'll be there." 3 fire emojis popped up in response. Someone he barely knew sent a thumbs up. Nia replied with, "Now it's a real party." Jacob locked his phone and tried to focus on the lecture, but the words washed over him without sticking. His week had turned into 2 separate lives, one with Tyler, Zane, and Nia, where he tried to look chill and unbothered, another at home and church, where he tried to look like everything was fine. Neither felt entirely true. That evening, he sat at the kitchen table while his mother chopped vegetables for dinner. The TV murmured in the living room. The house smelled like onions and garlic. "How was class?" she asked. "Good," Jacob said automatically. She glanced up. "Anything interesting happen?" He thought about the party invite, the group chat, the way his stomach had twisted with both dread and excitement. "Not really," he said. She nodded, returning to the cutting board. "Don't forget youth night again tomorrow. Marcus asked me how you're settling in at college. He seemed really glad you're still coming." Jacob's fork clinked against his plate. "Yeah, I know. You can talk to him, you know," she added. "Or Leah. Or Noah. You're not the only one figuring things out." "I'm fine, Mom," he said, a little too quickly. "It's just a lot." She paused, knife in midair. "I remember a lot," she said quietly. "Just don't carry it alone, okay?" He forced a smile. "Okay." That night, he lay in bed, group chat notifications lighting up his screen every few minutes. "Friday fam. Tyler, who's bringing what?" "N.A. I'm on snacks. Real snacks, not that sad celery dip somebody brought last time." "Unknown. Music's covered." "Zane, I got rides for anyone on the east side." "Tyler, Jacob, you good for a ride?" Jacob's fingers hovered. "Jacob, yeah, thanks." "Tyler, nice. Church boy makes his debut. Party popper." He locked the phone and turned it face down. Sleep came slower that night. When the dream finally took him, it arrived like a scene he'd watched too many times. The hallway. He stood in the center, backpack digging into his shoulders. The lights above hummed softly, but the glow felt dimmer than before. Shadows clung to the base of the walls like fog. The doors stretched out on either side. Some still glowed faintly around the edges, warm and steady. Others were plain. The darker ones seemed to pulse with a subtle, sickly light, like the glow of a screen in a dark room. Jacob took a step. His footsteps echoed. He felt a presence beside him, not quite visible, like someone walking just outside his field of vision. "Big night coming up," the whisper said. He swallowed. "Who are you?" No answer. Just a low, amused hum. He passed one bright door. For a moment, curiosity tugged at him. He paused, resting his fingertips against the wood. Warmth seeped into his skin. Voices drifted from somewhere beyond it, not words exactly, but the sense of laughter that didn't leave you feeling empty, of someone saying, "I'm proud of you," and meaning it. "You're not ready for that," the whisper said lazily. "Later. When you've lived a little." The warmth at his fingertips faded. He moved on. Ahead, a door on the left caught his eye. It was one of the darker ones, but not pitch black. The paint was a deep, glossy color, the handle polished like someone had just shined it. Faint sounds seeped through the crack, music, laughter, clinking glass. The kind of sounds that filled Jason's backyard in the group chat picture. "There," the whisper said. "That one's yours." Jacob's chest tightened. "Why?" "You already said yes," the whisper replied. "You chose it with your message. With your silence. With every time you laughed along when something felt wrong." He took a step back. "I didn't. I mean, I haven't gone yet. I can still." "You can still what?" the voice asked, soft and sharp at the same time. "Back out? Make them think you're boring? Prove you really are that church boy they keep teasing you about?" He clenched his jaw. The door on the left seemed to lean toward him, the sounds behind it growing louder, more enticing. Someone laughed in a way that made him think of being included. A distant voice shouted his name. On the right side of the hall, another door glowed more brightly than before. It wasn't as loud. No music. No shouting. Just a steady, gentle light filtering through the gap. "You could go there," the whisper said, almost bored. "Do the good kid thing. Stay home, go to church, keep your hands clean. But then you'll always wonder what you missed, won't you?" Jacob's heart pounded. His hands felt sweaty. He stood between the two doors, one humming with restless excitement, the other radiating quiet peace. He could almost feel them pulling at him, invisible strings attached to his chest. He took a step toward the bright door. The air around him thickened, as if he were walking through water. Every step felt heavy slow. The whisper sharpened. "You really think that door will still be there later if you don't take the fun one now?" He froze. It was just a dream, he told himself. Just his brain putting pictures to his thoughts. None of this was real. But the weight of the choice felt real. Behind him, the dark-edged door creaked, opening a fraction wider. A cool wind brushed his back, smelling faintly of smoke and something sweet and rotten. He turned, hand half raised. The music swelled. Laughter spilled out. He could almost see shapes moving beyond the threshold, shadows of people dancing, drinking, pressed close together. His name floated from somewhere inside, inviting, familiar. "Just one night," the whisper murmured. "You can still go to church tomorrow. You can still be good. You just don't have to be different. Not yet." His hand inched toward the handle, fingers tingling. Something flickered at the edge of his vision. He glanced back at the bright door. For a split second, he thought he saw a figure standing there, silhouetted in the light, no face, no details, just the outline of someone waiting, patient, steady. The pull toward that door was weaker, quieter, but it didn't go away. A second whisper rose up, not from the hallway but from somewhere inside him. It didn't shout or bargain. It just said, "This isn't who you are." Jacob squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them, his hand was already on the dark door's handle. Cold pulsed under his skin. He jolted awake, sitting up so fast his head spun. His room swam into focus, the familiar shapes in the dim light, the glow-in-the-dark stars, the outline of his desk. His phone buzzed on the nightstand with another new message from Friday FM, the screen briefly lighting up his face. He dragged a hand down over his eyes. "God," he whispered into the darkness, voice shaking more than he liked. I don't want to mess this up." The only sounds were the faint hum of the fridge down the hall and a car passing outside. He lay back down, staring at the ceiling. 2 doors. 2 lives. Somewhere between waking and sleep, the image of the hallway settled at the back of his mind like a warning he didn't fully understand yet. Tomorrow, there would be youth night again. Marcus would talk. Leah would ask gentle questions. Noah would crack a joke to lighten the mood. Friday, there would be a party. And Jacob, caught between 2 worlds, would have to decide which door he was going to walk through. Chapter 4: Consequences. The email arrived at 8:07 a.m. Jacob saw the notification pop up on his phone while he was brushing his teeth, a small banner sliding across the top of the screen, from Academic Affairs. Subject: Meeting Request. His stomach clenched. He spat out the toothpaste and wiped his mouth, picking up the phone with damp fingers. The message preview wouldn't show the whole thing, just the first line: "You are requested to attend a meeting regarding a concern in Dr. Weller's class." For a second, he couldn't move. Concern. Dr. Weller. The quiz floated into his mind: Tyler's phone, Nia's jokes, the perfect questions, the perfect score. The dark door in the hallway dream. Jacob? His mother's voice drifted down the hall. You almost ready to go? Yeah, he called back, voice cracking. He cleared his throat. Just a minute. He opened the email. The message was short and polite. A time. A room number. A reminder that a faculty member would be present. We simply wish to clarify a few matters. He read it twice, the words blurring at the edges. They know. Not everything. Not everyone. But something. His first instinct was to look for a way out. Maybe the email wasn't about the quiz. Maybe this was a misunderstanding. Maybe they'd mixed him up with someone else. But the knot in his chest said otherwise. Jacob, his mother called again. We don't want to hit traffic. He locked his phone and shoved it into his pocket. Coming, he said. The ride to campus felt shorter than usual. His mother talked about work deadlines and a neighbor's upcoming surgery, filling the silence with details Jacob barely registered. He nodded at the right moments, answering with and wow, while his mind replayed the email over and over. As they pulled up near the main entrance, she glanced sideways at him. You sure you're okay? She asked. You're quieter than usual. I'm fine, he lied. Just nervous about a class today. She reached over and squeezed his shoulder. You've been working hard. I'm proud of you, you know that. Guilt stabbed him so sharply he almost flinched. Yeah, he said softly. Thanks. He got out of the car before she could look too closely at his face. The meeting was scheduled for 11. Until then, Jacob drifted through his morning classes like a ghost. Words on slides, voices in lecture halls, the clatter of keyboards, all of it blended into a dull hum behind the pounding in his head. At 10:50, he found the office listed in the email and stood outside the door, palms sweaty. You could leave, a panicked thought suggested. Pretend you never saw the email. Blame your spam folder. But the hallway security camera in the corner caught his eye, a silent witness. Running wouldn't fix this. He took a breath and knocked. Come in, a voice called. The office was small and smelled faintly of coffee. A woman in a neat blazer sat behind a desk, a laptop open in front of her. To the side, in an extra chair, sat Dr. Weller, arms folded, expression unreadable. Jacob Walker, the woman asked. Yes, he said, stepping inside. Have a seat. She gestured to the chair opposite her. I'm Ms. Grant, from Academic Affairs. Thank you for coming. He sat, trying to keep his breathing steady. This is not a formal hearing, Ms. Grant said, her tone professional but not unkind. We just have some questions about a recent quiz in your Intro to Psych course. We want to give you an opportunity to share your side. His heart sank. Dr. Weller cleared his throat. Jacob, as you know, that quiz counts for a significant portion of your grade, he said. When I was grading, I noticed that several students gave the exact same sequence of answers, including the same unusual wording on one short answer question. Jacob's mouth went dry. Ms. Grant clicked something on her laptop. We're not accusing you of anything yet, she said. We simply noticed a pattern and want to understand what happened. She slid a printed page toward him. It showed a table of student IDs and answer patterns. Jacob's number was highlighted, along with a few others. Can you tell us, Ms. Grant asked gently, how you prepared for this quiz? The question was simple, but Jacob's mind scrambled. He could lie. Say he studied old notes. Say he and his friends just reviewed concepts. Say whatever would get him out of this room faster. He stared at the paper. The numbers blurred. In his mind, doors appeared. One was dark-edged, handle gleaming, labeled with unspoken words. Deny. Pretend. Protect yourself. Behind it, he could almost hear Tyler's voice. Bro, don't drag us into anything. Just keep your mouth shut. Another door, quieter, glowed faintly. Not comfortable. Not safe. But clear. Ms. Grant waited, pen poised over a blank line on her notepad. Jacob, she prompted. He exhaled. I studied with some classmates, he said. In the lounge. Dr. Weller's expression didn't change. And did those classmates happen to possess copies of previous quizzes from my course? The room felt smaller. Hotter. Jacob, Ms. Grant said, it's important to be honest. If there was a lapse in judgment, acknowledging it matters. It affects how we move forward. He could feel his heartbeat in his throat. Images flickered, Tyler grinning, Nia calling him one of us, the group chat celebrating their scores, the dark door in the dream breathing out that hollow cold. He swallowed. Yes, he said finally, the words scraping out of him. They had old quizzes. I looked at them. We all did. Silence fell. Dr. Weller sighed quietly, a sound more tired than angry. Thank you for telling the truth, Ms. Grant said. That takes courage. It didn't feel like courage. It felt like standing in front of a crashing wave with no cover. We'll need to review this with the others involved, she continued. The usual consequence for using unauthorized materials is a failing grade for the assessment at minimum and possibly further action. But your honesty will be taken into account. Jacob's stomach dropped. A failing grade, he repeated. For the quiz, yes, Ms. Grant said. Your overall course grade will depend on your performance on other assessments. He nodded numbly. Do you understand why this is considered a serious matter? She asked. Yes, he said. I knew it wasn't right. I didn't want to be the only one who didn't know what was coming. That's a very human feeling, Ms. Grant said softly. But part of the reason we're so firm about integrity is that your degree is supposed to represent what you actually know and who you are willing to be when no one is watching. Her words echoed Marcus's talk in a way that made Jacob's chest ache. Dr. Weller spoke again. I don't enjoy these conversations, he said. I'd rather invest my time in teaching than in policing. But when I see a pattern like this, I have to act. I'm sorry, Jacob said, voice low. I believe you are, Dr. Weller replied. Make sure this is the last time we have to talk about something like this, all right? Jacob nodded. Ms. Grant outlined next steps briefly, an official note on file, a follow-up email, the need for him to continue attending class and completing work. When the meeting ended, he walked out into the hallway feeling like his insides had been scooped out. He didn't see Tyler until lunch. Jacob was halfway through a sad sandwich in the cafeteria when Tyler dropped his tray on the table, eyes blazing. What did you say? Tyler demanded, not bothering with a greeting. Jacob blinked. What? Don't play dumb, man, Tyler said. We got the same email. Meeting with academic affairs. Same room. Same lady. Weller sitting there like judge and jury. What did you tell them? Jacob glanced around. A few students at nearby tables looked over briefly, then returned to their conversations. I told them the truth, Jacob said quietly. Tyler stared at him, incredulous. Are you serious? What was I supposed to do? Jacob asked, an edge creeping into his voice. Lie? Pretend we didn't see the old quiz when our answers were identical. Yes, Tyler hissed. Or at least not throw us under the bus. I didn't name anyone, Jacob said. They already had the list. They showed me the pattern. They knew. That's not the point, Tyler snapped. You confirmed it. Do you have any idea what that means? We could get written up. We could lose credit. This could go on our record. Jacob flinched. I know. I'm getting a 0 on the quiz. Tyler stared at him like that was the least important detail in the world. You really are a church boy, he said finally, disgust dripping from the words. Can't even hold the line for your friends when it matters. That's not fair, Jacob said, heat rising in his face. You're the one who brought the quiz. You knew it was wrong too. Tyler leaned in, eyes narrowed. I didn't drag your name into an official report. You did that all by yourself. He stood abruptly, tray rattling. Enjoy your honesty, he said. Hope it keeps you warm when you're eating lunch alone. He walked away without looking back. Jacob stared at his half-eaten sandwich until the edges blurred. He felt eyes on him, real or imagined. He finished his drink in 2 quick gulps, dumped his tray, and left. Youth night came faster than he expected. Part of him considered skipping. It would be easy enough to text Noah something about being busy. To tell his mother he had a study group. To avoid the songs, the questions, the way Marcus's words had lined up with his dreams. But when Thursday evening rolled around, he found himself putting on his usual shirt and standing by the front door anyway. You sure you don't want to ride? His mother asked. I can drop you off before I go to the meeting. I'll walk, he said. I need some air. The church was close enough to reach in 15 minutes. The sky was already dimming, the streetlights flickering on one by one. As he walked, Jacob replayed the week, Ms. Grant's office, Tyler's anger, the sinking feeling in his chest when he saw the 0 recorded for the quiz in the online portal. He pushed open the church's side door and stepped into the hallway leading to the youth room. Voices and music drifted out, familiar and jarring at the same time. Inside, the group looked much the same as always. Some faces lit up when they saw him, others barely registered his arrival. "Jacob." Noah waved him over. "You're just in time. We're about to start worship." Jacob slipped into a chair beside him. The worship songs began, words about grace, mercy, second chances. Normally, he would have sung them without thinking much. Tonight, each line brushed against his raw places. When the last song faded, Marcus came up with his Bible in hand. "Tonight," he said, "we're talking about what happens after we mess up." Jacob's spine tingled. Marcus smiled faintly. "Because we all do, right? Even when we know better." A ripple of agreement moved through the room. "Sometimes," Marcus continued, "the hardest part isn't the mistake itself. It's what comes after. The shame, the fear, the feeling that you have to hide from people, from God, maybe even from yourself." Jacob stared at his knees. Marcus told a brief story from his own life, how he'd cut corners on something years ago, gotten caught, and had to face the consequences. He talked about how tempted he'd been to lie, to protect himself, to justify his actions. And how, in the end, the relief of telling the truth had been painful but freeing. "God's forgiveness doesn't always erase consequences," Marcus said. "Sometimes we still have to deal with fallout. But He does erase the guilt when we bring it into the light. He walks with us through the mess instead of leaving us in it." He read a passage about confession and mercy, paraphrasing and explaining how God is more interested in a broken, honest heart than a perfect record. As Jacob listened, something inside him unclenched a little. When they broke into small groups, he ended up with Leah again, along with Noah and 2 others. Leah smiled, folding her hands. "Okay. Tonight's question is simple, but not easy. Have you ever messed up, faced consequences, and still found God in the middle of it?" Noah spoke first, sharing about a time he lied to his parents and got grounded, but eventually felt closer to them because of the honest conversations that followed. Another student talked about being caught plagiarizing a paragraph and how humiliating it was, and how their teacher's unexpected mercy had impacted them. Then Leah looked at Jacob. "How about you?" she asked gently. The familiar fork in the road appeared. He could say something safe. Make up a small story about forgetting homework or snapping at his mom. Keep the real story hidden. Or he could step toward the bright door. He took a breath. "I cheated," he said, the word rough in his mouth. "On a quiz." Noah's eyes widened slightly, but he stayed quiet. "In college?" Leah asked softly. Jacob nodded. "Some friends had an old quiz. I knew it was wrong, but I went along because I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to be the only one struggling." Leah's face was serious, but kind. "What happened?" "Academic affairs called me in," Jacob said. "They had the answer patterns. They knew. I could have lied, but I didn't. I told them what we did." "How did that feel?" she asked. "Awful," he said honestly. "I'm getting a 0 on the quiz. My friend is furious. He thinks I betrayed him by telling the truth. And he swallowed. I feel like I let everybody down. My parents. God. Myself." Leah nodded slowly. "Thank you for sharing that. That takes a lot of courage." He shook his head. "It feels like failure, not courage." "Sometimes courage looks like failure at first," she said. "You did mess up. You owned that. But you also chose honesty when it cost you. That's not nothing, Jacob. That's a real step toward Jesus." Noah spoke up. I think it's kind of amazing you told them the truth," he said. "I don't know if I would have." Jacob looked at him, surprised. Leah leaned forward slightly. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "When you think about God looking at you right now, this week, with everything that's happened, what expression do you see on his face?" The question caught him off guard. He thought of Ms. Grant's measured professionalism, Dr. Weller's disappointment, Tyler's anger. "I don't know," he said finally. "Probably disappointed. Tired. Like, you knew better, Jacob." Leah nodded. That's a common picture, she said. But I want you to consider another one. What if, instead, he's looking at you with sadness for the pain you're in, yes, but also with love? With relief that you came into the light instead of staying in the dark. With a hand held out, saying, okay, let's walk through this together. Jacob blinked, eyes stinging unexpectedly. I don't feel like I deserve that, he said. None of us do, Leah replied. That's kind of the point. Noah let out a breathy laugh. Yeah, if God only stuck around for people who never mess up, this room would be empty. They smiled weakly. Leah continued, the consequences might stick around for a while. That's part of how we learn. But shame, that crushing voice telling you this is all you are, that you're permanently marked as a failure, that's not from God. He thought of the whisper in the hallway. The cold behind the dark doors. The way it had sounded so smooth, so reasonable. If you want, Leah said, we can pray with you. Not to magically erase what happened, but to ask Jesus to cover your heart with his grace, to help you walk through the rest of this in truth. Jacob hesitated only a moment. Okay, he said. They bowed their heads. Leah prayed simply, thanking God for Jacob's honesty, asking for courage, for favor with his professors, for true repentance and real freedom from the patterns that had led him there. Noah added a few words, asking God to surround Jacob with the right friends. As they prayed, Jacob felt something loosen in his chest, a tightness he hadn't even known he was carrying. The consequences were still real. The zero wasn't going anywhere. Tyler's anger would still be waiting. But for the first time in days, he felt like he could breathe. That night, the dream came again. He stood in the hallway, but it looked different somehow. The lights were a little brighter. The shadows at the base of the walls still clung there, but thinner, like fog after sunrise. The dark-edged doors remained, but one of them, the one that had pulsed with the sounds of the party, was now slightly closed, the crack of its opening narrower than before. Jacob looked down at his hands. They were empty. You told the truth, the whisper said, sounding annoyed. That was risky. He glanced around. You're still here, he said. Of course, the voice replied. Consequences don't disappear just because you prayed. I know, Jacob said quietly. A different awareness brushed past him, gentle and firm at the same time. He turned toward the far end of the hallway. The bright door there stood more open now, light spilling onto the floor in a wide strip. He could still only see a hint of what lay beyond, but the warmth that poured out reached him even from a distance. He took a step toward it. His feet moved more easily this time. The whisper hissed, softer now. They're going to think you're weak. Your friends won't trust you. You'll be alone. Jacob paused. Maybe, he said. But I'm tired of walking with lies. He kept going. With each step, the cold from the dark doors receded a bit more. The bright door's light grew stronger, almost making him squint. He wasn't there yet. But for the first time, he believed he might actually reach it. He woke with his heart calm instead of racing, the image of the bright doorway lingering in his mind like a promise. The fallout of his choices wasn't over. But he had taken one step toward Jesus, and that step, however small, had changed the direction he was facing. Chapter 5: The Turning Point. Friday felt like it had been waiting for him all week. From the moment Jacob woke up, the day carried a low, restless hum. Every class felt like background noise. Every notification on his phone made his chest tighten. Two plans sat side by side in his mind. 1. Finish classes, go home, maybe read, maybe scroll through videos, then show up at youth/young adult on Sunday and pretend everything was normal. The other, follow through on his message to the group chat, ride with Tyler to Jason's party, step into the kind of night he'd always watched from a distance. The first plan felt safe, but small. The second felt dangerous, but magnetic. By late afternoon, his phone buzzed again. Friday fam. Tyler, rides rolling out at 7:30. Walker, you still in or you gonna ghost? Jacob stared at the message. He thought about the meeting with academic affairs. The zero on the quiz. Tyler's anger in the cafeteria. Leah's question, what expression do you see on God's face when he looks at you right now? Another message popped up. N.A. Don't flake, church boy. We already told people you're coming. Unknown. Yeah, don't be lame-faced with tears of joy. The pressure in his chest climbed. He typed, then deleted. Jacob, yeah, I'm coming. He erased it again. His thumb hovered. He dropped the phone on his bed and paced the room. The glow-in-the-dark stars above him watched silently. God, he said, voice rough, I don't know what to do. He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles turned white. If he said no now, Tyler would be furious. He was already barely speaking to him. This would just confirm everything Tyler thought about him, holier than thou, unreliable, not really one of them. If he said yes, he knew what kind of night it would be. Even if he told himself he'd just hang out and not do anything, he knew the current would pull at him. Pull him deeper than he wanted to go. He picked up his phone again and opened a different app. The Bible app sat where his mother had put it months ago when she'd helped him organize his home screen. He tapped it without thinking too much, more out of desperation than discipline. The verse of the day popped up. He skimmed it, barely registering the words, but one phrase caught his eye. Choose today whom you will serve. Choose. Today. Not someday when it's easier. Not after you've had your fun. Tension pricked at the back of his eyes. His phone buzzed again. Tyler, hello? Another message. Tyler, don't make me show up at your door, man. Jacob glanced at the time. 7:05. He could still say yes. He could still send one message and lock himself onto that path. Or he could do something that would feel, for a few painful minutes, like jumping off a cliff. He closed his eyes. Jesus, he whispered, if I go there tonight, I don't think I'm strong enough to just stand around and say no to everything. I don't want to keep walking through that dark door. Please, help me make the right choice. The room stayed quiet. No dramatic sign. No voice from heaven. Just the steady thump of his heart and the faint hum of the fan. He opened his eyes and typed. Jacob, I'm not coming tonight. He hit send before he could reconsider. The reply came almost immediately. Tyler, face with tears avoid good one. Be ready at 7:30. Jacob, I'm serious. I'm not going. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then, Tyler, wow. Another message. Tyler, you really are who they think you are. N.A. for real? After all that hype? Unknown, unamused face. Tyler, don't bother hitting us up next time you want help with a class or want to hang. You chose your side. Jacob stared at the words until they blurred. Chosen his side. That was exactly what he'd just done. It felt like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed. His vision went hot around the edges. For a moment, he wanted to snatch the decision back, to send a follow-up. Just kidding. I'll come. Relax. Instead, he locked the phone, put it face down on his desk, and sat back on his bed, breathing hard. He felt both lighter and more hollow at once. After a few minutes, he stood and grabbed his jacket. If he stayed home, he would scroll and think and maybe regret and maybe second-guess. He needed to go somewhere else. His feet carried him down the familiar streets to the church. The church building was mostly dark from the outside, but a soft glow leaked out from the small side chapel. The door was propped slightly open, a wedge keeping it from closing completely. Jacob hesitated on the steps. He'd never come here on a Friday night just to be here. Church was a Sunday thing, a Thursday thing. Not a I don't know where else to go thing. He pushed the door anyway. Inside, a few overhead lights were on, casting a warm, gentle light over the simple room. A wooden cross hung on the front wall. A few chairs were scattered around. Candles flickered near the front, some burnt low, some fresh. One person sat in the second row. Marcus had bowed, hands folded loosely. He looked up when he heard the door. Hey, Marcus said, surprised but not startled. Jacob. Jacob froze. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I can. It's okay, Marcus said, standing. Doors open for a reason. He walked a few steps closer. Everything all right? Jacob's throat felt tight. I didn't know where else to go, he said, the honesty surprising even himself. Marcus nodded slowly. Wanna sit? They settled into a row, a couple of chairs apart. Silence stretched, but it didn't feel hostile. Just waiting. Marcus broke it gently. Rough week. Jacob let out a humorless laugh. Something like that. Want to talk about it? Marcus asked. No pressure. I can listen. Or we can sit in silence. Or I can pray. Your call. Images jostled for space in Jacob's mind. The meeting with academic affairs, Tyler's angry face, Leah's small group questions, the group chat messages, the verse on his phone, the hallway and its doors. That thing you talked about, he said slowly, about doors and paths and choosing who you walk with. Marcus smiled faintly. Yeah, it's not just an illustration, Jacob said. It's kind of my whole life right now. Marcus waited. I messed up with a quiz, Jacob started. I told you before, in small group. But there's more. The people I did it with, they're not exactly helping me get closer to Jesus. He told Marcus about Tyler, Nia, Zane. About the quiz. About the party. About the messages. About backing out at the last minute. Marcus listened without interrupting, only nodding occasionally. When I told them I wasn't coming tonight, Jacob finished. Tyler basically said I'd chosen my side. Like I'd betrayed them. And how did that feel? Marcus asked quietly. Like I'd ripped something out, Jacob said. Like I was losing my only shot at fitting in. He stared at his hands. But also, like I could finally breathe. Marcus nodded slowly. Both can be true. They sat in quiet for a moment. Jacob, Marcus said, there comes a point in every believer's life where following Jesus stops being an idea and starts being a cost. Jacob swallowed. You just hit one of those points, Marcus continued. You had a chance to go along with something you knew would pull you further from him, and you said no. That's not small. That's not nothing. That's you walking through a different door. It doesn't feel heroic, Jacob said. It feels lonely. Marcus's voice softened. Jesus lost people too. Friends who walked away when his teaching was too hard. Crowds who loved him when he did miracles and left when he challenged their hearts. You're in good company. Jacob blinked, the sting returning to his eyes. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Be different. Not just at church. At school. With people. None of us do it first, Marcus said. We learn. We fail. We get back up with his help. But you know what's important? You didn't just say, I'm going to stop doing bad things. You ran somewhere. Here. To him. That's huge. Jacob let the words sink in. Can we pray? Marcus asked. Not a fancy one. Just asking Jesus to strengthen the choice you made tonight, to protect your heart from bitterness, and to bring the right people around you. Jacob hesitated only a second. Yeah, he said. Please. They bowed their heads. Marcus prayed simple, steady words, thanking God for Jacob's courage to say no, asking for comfort where he felt rejected, for wisdom in future decisions, for new friendships that would help him grow instead of pull him down. He asked that Jacob would see Jesus not as a distant judge, but as a close friend walking beside him. When they finished, the chapel felt different somehow, quieter inside his chest. Thanks, Jacob said. Anytime, Marcus replied. And if you ever want to talk or just sit like this again, you know where to find me. Jacob nodded and stood. As he walked home under the streetlights, his phone buzzed repeatedly. He resisted the urge to check it until he reached his room. Friday fam. Memes. Pictures. Blurry videos. Half-coherent comments. He scrolled through them, the party unfolding in pixelated chaos, music, faces he recognized and didn't, people posing with cups, someone doing something dumb on a table while others cheered. A message from Tyler stood out. Tyler, Jacob made his choice. Don't bother inviting him next time. A few likes. A few laughing reactions. The words hurt. But for the first time, he realized something. None of them had asked how he was. None of them had checked on him during the academic affairs mess. Their connection had been built on convenience, on shared shortcuts, on being entertained. He closed the app slowly. He opened a different chat, Noah's. Jacob, you busy? Noah, just got home from work. Sup? Jacob, could we maybe hang tomorrow or something? Just chill. Talk. There was a pause. Noah, yeah man. Anytime. Coffee shop? My place? Church? Noah, and hey. I'm glad you're reaching out. Jacob exhaled, a bit of the tension loosening. He set his phone down and lay back, staring at the ceiling. The dream came earlier than usual. One moment he was awake, tracing cracks in the paint with his eyes. The next, he was standing in the hallway. It looked clearer now. The overhead lights shone brighter, illuminating every corner. The shadows at the base of the walls were still there, but their edges were sharp, not creeping. The dark-edged doors remained, but a few that had previously been cracked open were now firmly shut, handles turned as if something had sealed them. Jacob looked down and noticed his backpack was gone. He took a step forward, listening. No whisper greeted him. He walked along the familiar path, passing doors that represented choices he didn't fully understand but could feel. Some hummed with that same restless energy he'd felt around Tyler and his crowd. Others pulsed with the quiet, steady warmth he'd started to associate with moments of honesty, prayer, and real conversation. As he reached the middle of the hall, he paused. On his left, one dark door, the one that had held the party's sounds before, sat nearly shut. A thin line of cold leaked from the bottom, but the handle looked somehow duller, less inviting. On his right, a bright door stood closer than before. Its light spilled out across the floor, reaching his shoes. He stepped into the light. Warmth spread up through his legs, into his chest. It didn't erase the memory of Tyler's words. It didn't erase the sting of rejection. But it wrapped around that pain, gently, like a hand steadying a shaking arm. From somewhere ahead, just beyond the threshold of the bright door, he heard something, not quite a voice, not quite music, but a blend of both. It carried a single clear message: you're not alone. He took another step. He still couldn't see what lay beyond. But for the first time, he no longer doubted that whatever waited on the other side of that light would be better than anything he'd left behind. He woke with tears on his face, but they weren't only from sadness. There was something else mixed in now. Hope. The battle wasn't over. There would be more doors, more nights, more choices. But Jacob had discovered something powerful. Saying yes to Jesus in one hard moment could change the entire direction of his story. And that, more than any party, was a story worth living. Chapter 6: A New Direction. Saturday afternoon at the coffee shop was loud in a different way than campus. Machines hissed and steamed. Cups clinked. Soft music played under the murmur of conversations. The air smelled like roasted beans and sugar. Jacob sat at a small table near the back, tapping his fingers on the lid of his drink. He'd gotten there 10 minutes early, mostly because he hadn't wanted to sit at home watching the clock. "Yo," Noah said, sliding into the chair across from him. "You look like you're waiting for exam results." Jacob huffed a laugh. "Feels like it." Noah took a sip of his iced drink, then leaned back. "So, you texted. That usually means something's up." Jacob hesitated. He'd already told this story twice, once to Ms. Grant and Dr. Weller, once to Leah and the small group. A third time felt like peeling off a Band-Aid that had just started to stick again. Still, he'd asked for this. "Yeah," he said slowly. "I kind of detonated my social life this week." He told Noah about the quiz, the meeting, the party invite, backing out, the group chat fallout. He left out the hallway dreams. That part felt too weird, too private, like something he was still trying to decode himself. Noah listened, eyebrows lifting in a few places, but he didn't interrupt. When Jacob finished, he stared at the table. "So yeah," he said. "That's me. Cheater who snitched and then flaked." "You told the truth," Noah corrected gently. "That's not snitching. That's not letting the lie grow." "Tell that to Tyler," Jacob muttered. "I get why he's mad," Noah said. "You messed with something he counted on. Not just the quiz. The idea that the way you guys were living was fine. Comfortable," Jacob said. "Yeah," Noah replied. "But not healthy." They sat in silence for a moment, the coffee shop noise filling the space between them. "You know," Noah added, "I used to have a group like that. Different people, same vibe. They were my whole world for a while. And when I started getting serious about Jesus, it felt like I was betraying them too." "What happened?" Jacob asked. "They drifted," Noah said simply. "Some unfollowed me. Some mocked me. Some just stopped calling." It hurt. A lot. But a few years later, one of them came back around. He was going through stuff and remembered I hadn't judged him when he first heard about my faith. He said, "I knew you were different. I just didn't want to admit it." "Are you guys friends now?" Jacob asked. "Yeah," Noah said. "In a different way. Not based on stupid dares and gossip, but on actually trying to follow Jesus together." He shrugged. "You never know what seeds you're planting now by being different. Even if it means walking alone for a while." Jacob traced a circle on the table with his cup. "I don't feel like some bold missionary," he said. "I feel like a kid who got scared and ran to church." "Maybe," Noah said. "Or maybe you're a kid who finally realized which way his feet were pointing and decided to turn." Jacob let the word sit. "Anyway," Noah said, brightening a little, "you're stuck with me now. And probably Leah, if you don't mind someone who prays way too much and asks uncomfortable questions." Jacob smirked. "I think I can handle that." Noah raised his cup. "To making the right choice, even when it annoys people." Jacob clinked his cup against Noah's. "To making the right choice," he echoed quietly. Sunday morning, the church foyer buzzed with conversation. Families greeted each other. Kids tugged on sleeves. The worship band's soundcheck thumped faintly through the walls. Jacob stepped inside, half expecting to see Tyler in every corner, arms crossed, glaring. But this wasn't campus. This was a different world. "Jacob," his mother said, appearing at his side. "I almost lost you in this crowd." "I'm here," he said, managing a small smile. She tilted her head. "You look lighter today." He shrugged. "Maybe I am. A little." "I've been praying for you," she said, squeezing his arm. "Every day." "I know," he replied softly. "Thank you." They split toward their respective doors when the service started, his parents to the main sanctuary, Jacob to the youth/young adult wing where they watched the sermon live on a screen and had their own discussion afterward. He found a seat beside Noah. Leah sat a couple of rows up, chatting with another student. Marcus stood near the back, talking quietly with a few older college kids. As the service began, Jacob let the music wash over him. The words about grace and new beginnings didn't feel like generic lyrics anymore. They felt specific. Aimed. Not in a condemning way, but in a way that said, "This is for you too." Afterward, during the youth discussion time, Marcus stepped up. "Before we jump into our usual questions," he said, "I want to say something." The room quieted. "This week," Marcus continued, "someone in our group made a hard choice. They turned away from something that most people would say is normal, even expected. They chose to be honest when it cost them. They chose to walk away from a situation that looked fun but was pulling them away from Jesus." Jacob's heart thumped. Marcus didn't say his name. He didn't have to. Jacob could feel a few eyes slide in his direction anyway. "I'm not going to tell their story for them," Marcus said. "That's theirs to share if and when they feel ready. But I want to highlight what that represents. This is what following Jesus looks like in real life. Not just singing songs here, but making choices out there that line up with what we say we believe." He looked around the room, eyes gentle but intense. "If that's you," he said, "if you've done something this week you're ashamed of, or if you've walked away from something that everyone else says is fine, but you knew wasn't right, know this: you're not alone. Jesus sees. He cares. He's not waiting to smack you down. He's inviting you to keep walking with him. And we, as a group, want to walk with you too." Jacob felt his throat tighten. Beside him, Noah shifted, nudging his shoulder lightly in silent support. Marcus smiled. "All right," he said. "Let's talk about what it means to choose today whom you will serve when you're the only one in your friend group who seems to care." The discussion that followed was rawer than usual. One girl admitted she'd unfollowed some accounts that pulled her into comparison and body shame. A guy confessed he'd walked away from a harmless prank that wasn't so harmless once he pictured the person on the other end. Another shared that he'd stayed out of a group chat for a night because he knew it would go places he didn't want to follow. No one mentioned parties or cheating explicitly, but Jacob didn't feel as uniquely broken anymore. He felt human, flawed, learning, walking. When the time opened up for prayer, several people raised their hands, asking for courage, for new friends, for strength to make the right choices when no one was watching. Jacob considered raising his hand too. Instead, he felt something else rise up, a small, trembling desire not just to be prayed for, but to step out. "Can I share something?" he heard himself say. Heads turned. Leah's eyes widened slightly, then she smiled and nodded toward him, giving him the floor. Jacob stood, palms sweaty, heart racing. "I'm not going to give all the details," he said, voice shaky, "but I made some bad choices recently. At school. With friends. I tried to fit in by doing what they were doing. It felt cool for about 5 minutes, and then it felt wrong. I knew it was wrong." A few people nodded, faces serious. "And when it all blew up," he continued, "I had to decide whether to tell the truth and take the hit or lie and pretend I was clean. I told the truth. I lost some friends. I got in trouble. It sucked." A few nervous laughs broke out at his bluntness. "But," he said slowly, "I also felt free. Not happy exactly. Not right away. But free. And when I turned away from something that would have pulled me further from Jesus, and I ran here instead, I realized something. I would rather disappoint people than disappoint him." The words surprised even him as they came out. They felt too bold, too confident, but also true, at least in that moment. "I'm not a hero," he added quickly. "I still mess up. I'll probably mess up tomorrow. But I'm done pretending I can walk through dark doors and somehow end up in the light." He sat down, pulse pounding in his ears. The room was quiet for a beat. Then someone in the back said softly, "Same." Another voice, "Yeah." Leah spoke up. "Thank you for sharing that, Jacob," she said. "That's exactly the kind of honesty that helps all of us." Marcus nodded. "Amen to that," he said. "This is what church is meant to be, a place where we can admit where we've been wrong and cheer for each other when we take even one step in the right direction." That night, the hallway came back one more time. Jacob found himself standing in the center, familiar tiles beneath his feet, familiar lights humming overhead. The doors lined the walls as always, bright, plain, dark. But something had changed. He wasn't alone. To his left, a girl he recognized from youth group, Sarah, stood staring at a door that pulsed with the faint chatter of gossip and the buzz of constant notifications. Her shoulders were hunched, as if weighed down by the expectation to keep everyone's secrets and stay in every conversation. To his right, a guy from the older college crowd looked at a door that glowed with the lure of success and approval, the muffled sound of applause and the rustle of money. His jaw was tight, like he was tired of holding up an image that didn't match his heart. They didn't see him. They seemed caught in their own struggles. Jacob looked down the hall. The bright door at the far end stood open wider than ever, light flooding the floor between him and it. The warmth that poured out didn't just reach his feet now. It wrapped around his legs, his torso, like sunlight after a long shadow. He felt the familiar whisper stir, weaker than before. "You really think you can keep this up?" it asked. "One right choice doesn't erase all the others. There will be more parties. More pressure. More chances to fall." "I know," Jacob said quietly. The whisper seemed taken aback. "But I'm not walking alone anymore," he continued. "I have people who actually care if I follow Jesus. And even when I mess up, he doesn't leave." The whisper receded, its edge blunted, like a storm drifting farther offshore. Jacob turned toward Sarah and the older guy. He took a few steps toward each of them, reaching out, not to drag them, not to judge, but simply to stand nearby, close enough that if they decided to turn, they wouldn't have to walk alone. He didn't grab their arms. He didn't shout. He just stood, an option, a quiet presence. Then he faced the bright door again. He walked forward. Each step felt easier than the last. The voices behind the dark doors faded, replaced by the steady hum of something truer and deeper. As he neared the doorway, the light grew so bright he had to squint, but it didn't hurt. It felt like standing in warmth he'd been cold without for a long time. Just before he reached the threshold, he heard a voice, not the slick whisper of temptation, but a strong, gentle tone that filled the hallway without needing to be loud. "I'm proud of you," it said. "Not because you've done everything right, but because you chose me when it cost you." Jacob's chest tightened. He stepped into the light. He woke up with sunlight streaming through his real window, the glow-in-the-dark stars above him barely visible in the day. His phone rested on the nightstand, silent for once. He picked it up and opened his messages. No new notes from Friday FM. A few from Noah. One from Leah, praying for you this week. Keep choosing the better door. Jacob smiled, a small, real one. The story wasn't over. There would be more temptations, more decisions, more failures, more grace. But book one of his journey, this first chapter of learning to make the right choice, to choose Jesus over pressure, over fake belonging, had reached its first real ending. Somewhere in that mixed youth/young adult group, another story was already forming. Someone else was standing in their own hallway, listening to their own whispers, staring at their own doors. And when their turn came, Jacob would be ready, not as a perfect example, but as someone who knew exactly how it felt to stand between the dark and the light, heart-pounding, and choose, one trembling step at a time, to walk toward Jesus.